does that affect our current, the contract?
We went back down to Iowa for graduation program.
Actually, I'd like them to become members
Sorry.
as well. Like,
Either they're coming up here or we're going down there.
Wow. No, that sucks.
2 minutes graduating
We're on air.
and track meets.
Oh yeah, no, that's no fun.
All right, we ready? All right, call into order the May 20th, 2025 meeting of the Long Lake City Council. It's 6:31 PM. All council members are present this evening. I know Councilmember Divek needs to leave a little bit early here in 15 minutes or so. So with that, we will start with the item 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3 is mayor comments, Long Lake News, meeting review and updates. Just a few items to mention tonight. First of all, I was absent with prior notice at the last meeting on May 6th, so I appreciate Councilmember Divek serving as mayor pro tem that evening. Watched the video and you did a great job. On May 8th, 2 days after that, we had the Fire Services Joint Open Forum. So I know Councilmember Divek mentioned at the last meeting, kind of pushed it. I see some folks in the audience here who were present as well, and that was a really good event. Thanks to Trinity Lutheran Church for hosting that event. We got a lot of good feedback from participants and audience members. It's a really good vibe in the room. Great to have, the cities of Lone Lake and Orono sitting together at a table in front of everybody and explaining the future of fire service in our community, something that would have never happened last, 4 or 5 years or so. So we're thankful for our Orono partners for hosting that with us. There's a YouTube video of it that is available on our city website under Fire Service Updates and Information webpage, specifically the News and Presentations tab. It might also be on the LMCC website. We thank the LMCC for recording that as well. So please take a look at that video if you weren't in attendance and have not had a chance to watch that yet. And then upcoming event would be next Monday, of course, is Memorial Day on May 26th. So I know the City of Lone Lake, usually there's 3 very noteworthy events that occur in our city, 2 at our local cemeteries, and then 1 at Nelson Lakeside Park. So we encourage community members to come down and join those events. I'm sure City Clerk Moeller will put information out shortly on those events. It seems like Memorial Day is earlier this year than usual, so it's going to be here before we know it. And it seems like every Memorial Day event I participated in since being mayor, it's rained. But this year it appears to be sunny. At least as of now, the forecast is sunny, so we're hoping for that, and that does not change. So a few updates there with city events going on. With that, we'll move on to item 4, which is to approve this evening's agenda. I'll entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second that.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, consent agenda. We have items A through F on the consent agenda this evening. A couple items I'll point out is donation of equipment to Lone Lake Fire Department on behalf of Relief, I believe it's Second Call, and the Relief Association. And then item F, adopting a resolution 2025-16, appointing resident Mark Pricing. My apologies, to the position of Park Board member, serving a term effective through December 31st, 2027. Very much appreciate you stepping forward, Mark, and I think we'll introduce you a little bit more here in just a minute. So any questions for staff regarding items on the consent agenda this evening?
I just have a real quick question. So on the it's for the approved vendor claims and payroll. Just on the PSN, utility online billing, there's 2 entries for software support for $152. One is for 93 cents and 92 cents. Bill pay fee for April. They're both for April.
Is it split between 2 codes?
601, 602.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's one payment divided by 2 funds.
Okay.
That's why it wasn't an even number. You got a
So do we
203.
pay sales tax? What do we pay sales?
There's a transaction fee for them doing taxes. No, we don't pay sales tax.
Okay, that's because it just says, oh, April sales tax.
We pay, that's for water sold,
Oh, okay,
for commercial, yeah. That's the state
okay,
regulation, yeah.
okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, entertain a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
I can make a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, 6, open correspondence. Open correspondence is an item on the agenda in which to publicly address the city council. No formal action is taken by the city council, and comments shall be limited to 5 minutes or less. And open correspondence comments may also be emailed to city staff by noon on the date of the meeting. So we begin with Jeanette on this one. You got a little announcement for us.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to take a moment, Mr. Pricing, if you'd like to come on and stand up at the podium. I'd like to introduce Mark Pricing to everyone. We appointed him to the position of Park Board member on tonight's consent agenda. If you had a chance to look at his application for the Park Board, you'll see that he has quite the extensive background in teaching and community education, prior experience working with Parks and Recreation departments and such. Great volunteer experience. We are very fortunate to have an applicant quite so qualified to apply for this position, and look forward to working with him and introducing him to the board members and getting the board back meeting again with a full quorum. So I wanted to introduce him to you and welcome you to share anything you'd like to share with the council, as well as to welcome you to ask a question or two if you'd like.
Great. Good evening,
Thank you,
Mark.
Jeanette. And Mayor, no issue with the pronunciation of my name. It's not spelled and pronounced the same way.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully I wasn't the first to do that.
Yeah, not the first.
Well, welcome to the community, and I noticed you live in Zivago,
Yes.
and you probably have joined us at an event or two already at tree lighting events and that sort of thing. So great to have you in the community for number one, and then as on our park board now.
Thank you.
And you'll be a great addition. Anything else you want to mention or say, or?
A little bio, what would you like?
Sure, just a quick bio. That'd be fine.
Well, I don't sing and dance. I'm a retired public school teacher and community ed director. As Jeanette said, I've been involved heavily in lots and lots of park and rec programming and initiatives over a long period of time. And it's something that I take pride in, that I think is really important. It's really important to a community. I'm married. My wife and I have been married 50 years in a couple of months.
Oh.
She's a retired private school administrator, not public school. Difference. And we have 7 grandkids, and my 3 adult kids and grandkids all kind of live in the area.
Nice.
Where did you teach?
I taught in Apple Valley, Rosemount, Egan, at Apple Valley High School. I taught in Robbinsdale for a long time. Then I taught out in Buffalo, Minnesota, and then I finished down in Montgomery, Lonsdale, and the center.
Wow.
Oh,
That's great.
nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for stepping forward to be on the park board. It's a great. They do great work, and it's not a lot of folks always standing up to serve their community, and so we appreciate that you're willing to do that. And it's not as much of a time commitment as some of our other boards, but the staff will keep you busy, and we love the input of park board members when it comes to planning for our parks in the future, improvements, and that sort of thing. So.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, anyone else wish to approach for public or for open correspondence this evening? All right, yeah, we have a taker. I wasn't sure. You were slow motion.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, Brian Miller, 295 Lakeview Avenue. I have just a couple of, will draw council's attention to some matters on Lakeview Avenue and that whole neighborhood there. My delivery is going to be with a little levity, but also in all seriousness. And if I may, Jeanette, This is a picture of Lakeview Avenue in front of Tim Haltman's house. When they built that apartment building here, 298 Lakeview Avenue, they made this side of the street no parking along the entire street so that fire trucks could get to that apartment building. And as you can see, all the no parking signs are completely faded away. I know Tim Haltman has been up here and asked the city to replace those signs. And I'd like to ask the council and the city to take serious consideration of addressing that matter because it's shoddy looking. I don't know about you, but I consider signs to be a form of pollution. This is just garbage on a stick. So if somebody could honor Tim's request and get that done. This is 249 Lakeview Avenue, Dave Schwanier's house. This is a city culvert that has been talked about with the city as well. This culvert is about 5 to 6 inches above the grade there and is a speed bump. I know Tim Haltman has addressed this with the city before too, and we'd like to see the city come and reset this culvert because it's city owned. Here's a top view of that. So it's painful to watch Dave come and go from his home, clunk, 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 every day. I will say, back in probably 20 years ago, the city did come through and retrench the ditches along here. And they did a great job. And they replaced it with the grass with grass seed. With that, my neighbor Mark Jones and I'm way up here. We actually paid Otten Brothers to come and put sod in because grass seed was ridiculous. It looked shoddy, it looked terrible, it looked miserable. This is a picture of my backyard from the house. My culvert is over here. I've talked to the city, and Tim Haltman has talked to the city many times about replacing that culvert. It floods every time at this year. This is Mildred down here. Her and her husband Drake have come for the past 3 years. They love to swim back here. Tim and Patty and I will sit on my back deck here and enjoy watching Mildred and Drake walk around the backyard and visit with us and go for a swim. This is today, and this will stay here for a couple of days. If the rain continues, it'll be there for weeks. And it's all because this culvert is too high on this end. And like I said, I think Tim Haltman's advocated for me years ago about getting that culvert replaced so that the backyard doesn't flood. We all know that standing water is a health concern. You're a watershed district, so maybe you're familiar with mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff. So standing water for more than 24 hours is a mosquito hazard, breeding ground rather. I don't think this culvert needs to be replaced. I think it just needs to be pulled up, cleaned out, and reset so that it's actually level. Because, you know, this is a frost freeze situation where it's just has risen up over the years, same as Dave Schwanier's house.
But that's not Lakeview, is it? It's
No, this is Central Avenue. So that's Central Avenue. Now let's take a quick trip down memory lane. This is a map of my neighborhood from 1940. This is my house here. This is Gretchen Cashmore. This is Dave Schwanier. This is Lisa Cochran. These are original homes to Long Lake. This is long before Charlie and Deirdre over here, long before anybody over on Grand Avenue or west of Brown Road. I'm sorry, this is Brown Road. This is Lakeview Avenue. This is Orchard, Central, and Grand, and this is Watertown Road here. So, and then John's down here somewhere. So Lakeview Avenue used to have an actual view of the lake. My point about this is an original neighborhood of the founding of the city of Long Lake. This is the first neighborhood. You know, everything was taking place down here by the lake. This is the first neighborhood up here. So historically, it would be nice if the city would spend a little more time paying attention to Lakeview Avenue and this whole neighborhood here, because frankly, there's a lot of neglect. I mean, how long does it take to get no parking signs that actually say no parking? that you can read, or ditches that drain. That's all. Just would like this council to direct city staff to take the matter more seriously up in our neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Brian. Others for public comment?
Marty, before you start, it's not that I don't want to hear you talk. I have a daughter who's going to be extremely disappointed if I don't make her band concert, so I'm going to step out.
I'll call you later and give you
Good night, John.
Marty Schneider, 1176 West Wayzata Boulevard, and really just showing up here to give you a preemptive preview of Buckhorn Days. Buckhorn Days, of which we will be filing our application within the next week. We've been in touch with staff. We'll be on July 12, Saturday. And item note, the content this year, July, the Association will be they were at the Buckhorn Days here with informative booth. They'll be hosting the carp tournament. We're in the works. Mayor Minor, we discussed this briefly last week. We're having a meeting with the fire department, and we may be hosting, as part of Buckhorn Days, their traditional 5K run that usually runs out of Fire Department number 1. They're looking to be a bit more integrated within community activities, so that's good news there. We feel we can accommodate them in that gap before everything starts, so to be continued. We were also approached by the Orono wrestling team, and they've volunteered to be generally helpful throughout the day. We like that as well, bring other groups into the event. The Lions still very much a part of it. We are right now debating whether we have enough funding to do fireworks, which we did not have last year, but did in prior years, as you're aware, as well as the water ski show. So right now, we've got 5 bands. We've got the fishing tournament, dog races, beanbag toss, car show at the museum, etc. But just wanted to give you a little preview, and again, hopefully within the next week, we'll have ready for your next meeting the full application.
That's
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Great. Sounds like a great event, Marty. Thank you for giving us some tidbits on that. All right. Anyone else for open correspondence? All right. If not, we'll move on to item 7, regular business, starting with 7A, resolution of support for the Long Lake Creek Watershed Partnership and the MCWD Downtown Lake Long Lake Feasibility Study. Who's going to kick this off? Scott?
Sure. Some background. In 2014, the Minnesota Pollution Control completed a total maximum daily load study, which identified 5 impaired lakes in the sub-watershed district, and that includes the cities of Long Lake, Orono, and Medina. In 2016, Long Lake passed a resolution to partner with intergovernment agencies, which would be Orono, Long Lake, Medina, partnering with other intergovernmental agencies. In 2018, with the support of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, they were able to obtain a grant that would allow them to identify some ways to reduce their TMDLs in the overall area. And so in 2020, the MCWD presented the preliminary findings in 2020 to the city councils of the 3 communities, and then in 2023, a final report was created, and they identified that as a Long Lake Watershed Roadmap. The roadmap identified 34 projects that could be in the area to reduce those TMDLs, and also in 2023, they did apply for and receive a grant of $174,940 to conduct the feasibility of those 34 projects. And right now, I believe they're focusing on the downtown area, which this letter is going to support. and they're ready to initiate the feasibility study and in coordination with the city of Long Lake. And so that was just kind of the background. But with that being said, we have representatives from MCWD here to do a presentation.
Great, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Minor, council members. Scott, I don't think I need to make a presentation. Pretty much stole the show there and covered everything I was going to. But my name is James Whisker. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm the administrator for the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. I'm joined by a couple staff, Becca and Rachel Baker, who will be joining me in a minute. She's a project planner for the watershed, and she's going to be covering the feasibility work. So we appreciate you having us here to just provide an overview, which is what I want to do next. We're going to give an overview of Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. I'll cover some of the history of the Long Lake Creek Partnership. Scott punched through that rather neatly just a minute ago before Rachel then introduces this, the potential for us to advance this grant-funded feasibility study for how we can integrate regional stormwater management improvements into downtown Long Lake with public infrastructure improvements, parks and open space, or redevelopment. Hoping at the conclusion, after we answer any questions, that we could just get council support for this work, which will be advanced, like Scott said, in collaboration with the city team. So I'm not sure when we last presented, but wanted to familiarize or refamiliarize everybody with the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. So I'm going to briefly introduce who we are, how we approach our work. In terms of our geography, this is the Minnehaha Creek watershed. We cover 178 square miles. It all drains eventually into the creek and the Mississippi River. Our watershed's the largest urban watershed in the metro, and as a result, it contains a really rich mix of land use, natural resources, and communities. It covers portions of Hennepin and Carver County, 29 different cities from the urban center in Minneapolis, our lake communities, and out west into some of the ex-urban and expanding suburbs in Victoria and as far west as Waconia. We also have, as I mentioned, a pretty high volume of natural resources. We have over 120 lakes, a number of major stream systems, and iconic placemaking resources like Long Lake, Lake Minnetonka, our namesake Minnehaha Creek, the chain of lakes, Minnehaha Falls, and more. In terms of how we think and how we approach our work, partnership's really at the core of how we approach things. And part of the reason for that is we believe that natural systems, our lakes, our streams, our wetlands, that those underpin local identity and that they create a sense of place. I think Long Lake is a perfect example of that, anchored right on the natural setting of Long Lake. And so when properly integrated, we really view the work of the watershed as an essential component in building thriving communities and sustainable cities that are great to live, work, and play in. Now, there's a central tension in there because we know that how we choose to use our land affects the amount of runoff and the quality of water that's coming off the landscape. But the watershed district doesn't own all the land, and we don't control the decisions about it. So whether we're working on building projects or shaping policy, we're always thinking about how our investments, our time, our capital, how those can be catalysts for our partners' goals in the built environment, like the city. And we do that by starting with science. So we take a data-driven understanding of the watershed, and then we try to layer in our partners' objectives, which might relate to things like transportation and infrastructure improvements, community development, parks and open space planning, and of course the community and the people that live in there, so that we can build amazing places in the watershed that are really great for the environment, but they're good for the communities and the people that live in them. And I mentioned one of the principal ways that we achieve our mission is by building capital projects. Those projects, we hope, measurably improve water quality and reduce flooding. And as we think about projects, just like in life or business, the Watershed District believes that focus brings success. On a capital project planning front, focus allows us to sustain attention in areas of high need. It helps us understand what the local priorities are, helps us build situational awareness and the relationships we need to actually get things done. So we currently have 4 major areas of capital project planning and implementation on the map here. We have our lower 44 square mile watershed, which is the Minnehaha Creek subwatershed. And then upstream, we have what we call our Lake Minnetonka strategy. This is where the watershed is focused on the 3 largest tributaries to Lake Minnetonka, which represent double the direct drainage area to the lake. And not coincidentally, all drain to bays that are impaired for water quality, like Long Lake, which drains down to Tanager Bay. So within the 12 square miles of the Long Lake subwatershed, we have a strong history of partnership and investments to improve Long Lake. In the 90s, the watershed worked with city partners to implement a suite of projects to improve water quality in the lake, including the construction of 2 regional stormwater ponds that sit north of the lake, the Deer Hill and County Road 6 ponds, which are owned and operated by the district. We enhanced existing stormwater ponds and did some shoreline restoration at Nelson Lakeside Park to treat runoff from the western downtown area of Long Lake. And there was some in-lake work with some alum dosing in the lake. That work, some of which is depicted here, was then subsequently followed with a partnership later where the district forged with the Metropolitan Council to convert the former wastewater treatment pond, which sits just south of Highway 12, into a wetland and stream channel restoration, creating around 17 acres of flood storage and water quality improvement, about 10 acres of restored green space for the surrounding neighborhoods. So now I think this is picking up where Scott left off, our more contemporary era of partnership. He mentioned that in 2014, following the completion of the state's total maximum daily load, which identifies pollution reduction targets for cities for the 5 impaired water bodies in this area that are shown on the map. That in 2016, the cities with Vision, the Medina, Orono, Long Lake, and working with Long Lake Waters, the Grassroots Association, passed a resolution of partnership saying, let's work together to pursue water quality projects and grant funding in coordination. After initial efforts to manage carp, and we heard about how those are ongoing, that were undertaken by Long Lake Waters, in 2018, the watershed was more formally invited into the partnership, and we secured around $100,000 in state grant funding to do some monitoring, diagnostic in this area to identify a next wave of projects, which led to the development of this Long Lake Creek roadmap, which we're here to talk about and brings us here tonight. That roadmap used field data, monitoring data collected across the system and broke this approximately 12 square mile watershed into manageable units or management units. And in each one, we're identifying what the water quality issues are and what's causing them. But importantly, we're identifying a suite of strategies and capital improvements that will help us all meet our water quality goals. So I think Scott covered this as well. We've identified 34 projects that are recommended for implementation that when integrated with local improvements and if implemented are estimated to achieve the load reductions necessary to remove Long Lake from the impaired waters list, as well as addressing water quality goals for some of the other lakes as well. I'm talking briefly about the strategy to achieve those lasting water quality results. The roadmap sets out a suite of priorities that address the root causes of the water impairments. Regional stormwater treatments at the top of the list is the first priority to cost effectively treat large drainage areas within the subwatershed. This includes the retrofit of 3 regional ponds that are already in the landscape, improving on assets that we already own and operate from the 90s, and the construction of additional treatment for more of the developed downtown Long Lake area. In parallel with regional treatment, the roadmap also identifies a suite of opportunity zones, is what we're calling them. These are other landscape projects, areas where we know projects could be integrated with public infrastructure improvements or perhaps private development. We've seen some examples of this up in the northeast corner by Holy Name and Medina, where community development staff have nudged developers our direction as they're planning single-family subdivisions for wetland banking projects, where we're working together on some of the technical feasibility and potentially bringing capital to the table, and in other developments where they've pushed for conservation subdivisions. So the roadmap identified around 20 opportunity zones that can help guide all of us as partners moving forward to usher water quality improvements into other work that might be happening. And then finally, there is a place for addressing some of the water quality issues that come from within the lake or internal loading through the use of alum dosing after some of those landscape projects are moved forward. I wanted to just have a quick plug here for the first regional stormwater project, the County Road 6 retrofit. That's moving forward. That's in the city of Orono. That's in design. That's been through community engagement. It's gotten strong support from Long Lake Waters, and we were able to secure resolution support from the Orono City Council, and that's being prepared for bid later this year, and that will further reduce pollutant loading into Long Lake by around 40 pounds per year, so a pretty good return on investment there. And we were pretty pleased to see that project and just all of the work of the three communities in this broader partnership and the Long Lake Waters Association get some positive media attention in last week's Laker Pioneer. So if you haven't seen that yet, you probably have, but check it out. So with County Road 6 underway, we have, as Scott mentioned, secured additional grant dollars to then evaluate opportunities where we could integrate regional stormwater into more of the developed or urbanized landscape of downtown Long Lake. And that's work that Rachel Baker is going to be leading on our team. So I'm going to turn to her. She's got a couple of slides to talk you through the goals of that feasibility work, the process that we'll step through, and the timeline. And then we'll see if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, James. Welcome, Rachel.
Hello, good evening.
For those that don't know, Rachel's father's name is on that plaque over there, is former mayors of the city of Long Lake. So Rachel Bash, maiden name, and welcome. It's great to see you. Yes, of course not. She grew up here in Long Lake, and now she's here helping to improve the water quality of Long Lake. So that's great. Good to see you, Rachel.
Be here. All right, so as James teed up for me, this feasibility is going to be led by our projects and planning team in collaboration with city staff that we hope to kick off this summer. So the downtown management unit area of Long Lake totals 518 acres. It spans from the Orono schools on the far west side to about Red Rooster on the east side of town. And this area all drains to Nelson Lakeside Park before flowing into Long Lake. The management unit has nearly 4 times the volume of nutrient loading per unit area compared to the other management units draining to Long Lake. This is largely due to the high impervious surfaces in the commercial and industrial corridor in between the old Highway 12 and the bypass. As James mentioned, the roadmap identified various cost-effective opportunities to build or improve stormwater management projects that would reduce this volume and pollutant load leaving the management unit. And we obtained $175,000 in state grant funding to pursue this feasibility. And our hope is to collaborate with the city to see how we can integrate stormwater improvements into the downtown landscape by exploring these various opportunities in and between the shaded areas on the map there. From there, we can evaluate each project opportunity to determine which projects are most cost effective and which we can move forward. As partners, coordinating on project implementation and developing a funding strategy to implement these projects will be able to drive meaningful movement toward meeting those state water quality standards. As far as timeline and next steps go, MCWD staff is finalizing a request for proposal and plan to review with city staff prior to releasing it. Once we've selected a qualified firm, the feasibility will begin this summer. We anticipate the feasibility will take about 6 months, so we'll be back before you to present the feasibility's recommendations in early 2025 or 2026, and late 2025, early 2026. And then from there, MCWD and Long Lake can work together to apply for applicable funding opportunities and then move the project into design. So with that, we have a few actions we hope you will consider. We've appreciated the partnership and collaboration with staff so far and are excited to get started on this next phase of partnership. And thank you for allowing us to present, and I'll turn it back to you for any questions you may have for me or James.
All right, thank you, Rachel. Any questions for James or Rachel?
So you'll come up with some strategies for different projects and different price points and figure out what kind of makes sense to move forward based on the cost and a likelihood of getting funding?
Yeah, we'll kind of consider projects on multiple factors: cost effectiveness, how much loading, how much loading we can address, and then what's feasible. Is it on public property? Is it on an area that will be able to be maintained appropriately? So there's lots of different factors that we'll talk about. We'll come up with some sort of kind of matrix to weigh all the pros and cons of each, and the recommendations will kind of come together and we'll compare them against each other. If that makes sense.
Scott, did we look at a project, was Minnehaha Watershed District years ago come in and look for a project that involved, yeah, in some sort of,
Tunnel or?
Yeah.
Drainage? Is that still in the
Drainage.
works?
It's still kind of that idea, right? We just don't know. It's a public area that could be used if we do it right. There's that one big, large ravine that we walked the one night that could be maybe reconstructed, redirected. So yeah, that's something that, same kind of idea projects, hopefully we can find, things like that through that feasibility that have already been identified, but will be cleaned up a little bit more.
Okay, because I can't remember why we didn't move forward. I think it probably had something to do with expense.
I believe that was just the first time you guys did your findings, or was that back in 23? When you identified some of possible locations? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Scott, why that wouldn't have moved forward, but to answer Councilmember's question, we'll be looking at the treatment train that's already in place. There is stormwater in place as it works its way down to Nelson Parkside Pond. So just like with the County Road 6 project, one of the most cost-effective things that we can do is how do we retrofit the systems that we already have to squeeze every last drop of water quality treatment out of that. I think the flow path from Holbrook down to Nelson Parkside Ponds, it goes behind Pioneer Museum and to the ponds, we're particularly interested in. And then while we'll be also looking at how do we integrate water quality and stormwater improvements into if there's planned street, public improvements long-term, or private redevelopment, and how we have quite a broad portfolio of projects where we've done that in other communities with district capital, diverting water off of maybe a main trunk line, pulling it into private property and managing it that way. So we're not going to be looking at just a single project, and as far as cost and benefit and cost to implement, we're always thinking about what's the right funding strategy. And I think here, with the fact that the state has funded the broader assessment of the entire subwatershed, they've seen fit to then grant a second round of investment for us to plan projects that would fit within Long Lake. Typically, that means that if you identify a cost beneficial project, that you'd be quite competitive for capital funding from the state too. So we are thinking about cost to implement, how we get work actually in the ground and not just study things.
Well, I can make a motion, if it works, to adopt resolution number 2025-12, accepting the Long Lake Creek Roadmap and supporting the ongoing partnership with the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District and cities of Medina and Orono to advance efforts to improve water quality in the Long Lake Creek sub-watershed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So thank you. You guys do great work. And, I walk around Long Lake every day, and it's just, as you think about all the creeks we have going through town and coming from the lake and going to Lake Minnetonka, there's a lot going on, a lot of water flowing different directions around. So we appreciate you guys and the work you do keeping our lake clean. We've had a lot of success in the last couple of years with Long Lake in particular and removing the carp, as you mentioned, and good feedback from residents and lake users about the better water quality in Long Lake. I know you were a partner with that as well as some other entities, so thank you for your efforts on that.
Do you guys work with public and private property, or is it?
Absolutely. We've got a whole range of projects that we've done, Councilmember Newcomer, in partnership with private landowners.
Okay.
And so we've got a whole portfolio of those on the website. We can send you some follow-up information where private business campuses are redeveloping, and we're pulling regional stormwater into those properties to treat it for a larger public good with our technical expertise and some of our capital funding. So we aren't just looking at public improvements.
Perfect.
And I would just say, I echo back to Mayor Minor on behalf of our board, we deeply appreciate the partnership of Long Lake. It means a lot to us to have your support, and we wouldn't be here without it. So we look forward to carrying the work forward with staff. You've probably seen some of these, but we have some very simple handouts. You can leave them up front for the public or share them with the council, but I'll leave these with the staff too.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to item 7B, ordinance amending section 19 of the zoning code to update requirements for residential, business, and swimming pool fences. Jeanette, this must be you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you this evening, we have an ordinance staff has prepared. This was a partnership between myself, our planning consultant, also our city attorney gave it a quick scan as well. As we talk about our goals every year, there's always something that we think back and reflect and go, oh goodness, that really should have been included. And this is one of those that I think we've had that regret about for a couple of years. Because when you talk about the top 10 things we probably receive feedback from residents, our fencing standards is one of them. We've been aware for some time that our fence standards are quite outdated and really in need of being brought up to current with not just our local communities, but I would say the bulk of the metro. So the ordinance before you, the Planning Commission reviewed this at their May 13th meeting. No one attended the public hearing to provide any comments. The draft ordinance would amend section 19 of our zoning code to include some updates. For one, code currently requires erosion control and construction fences, but yet our fence code doesn't really allow them. So we wanted to rectify that by better addressing temporary fences and seasonal fences, like your, when you've put down new grass seed, your seasonal only type garden fences, to recognize those as being exempt from requiring fence permits, but subject to standards in that they don't remain in place year round. The intent is seasonal. So first wanted to recognize those in the draft. Our current fence code actually requires a survey for submission with a fence permit application. And if you've ever had to acquire a survey, you know that that is a rather costly situation there. But we have discovered that technology has changed quite a lot over the last few decades since the last time anyone looked at our fence code. And generally, more often than not, we found that we're able to accept a site plan utilizing GIS data that's available through Hennepin County. Really with a public property information search, people can see the boundaries of their property and draw in where their fence will be and provide us with enough information that we feel confident issuing a fence permit, and that's information that's available to residents at no charge. So we wanted to be sure that we allowed for a detailed site plan that documents a fence's location, for submission with the fence permit application. Another thing, the real one here, this was the big push that we hear the most about, is that right now our fence requirements state that all residential fences must be set back at least 1 foot from all property lines, which I know we talked about this previously at the council level. What that results in is 2 properties next to each other with a fence 1 foot in and not a lot of room to mow in between. And there are a lot of folks out there over the years that have asked many times, why can't we do a boundary line fence? It would be a lot cleaner. My neighbors and I want to work together on it, and that has never been something we've been available to make open as an option for residents. The ask is coming more frequently. I had actually recently received one, and a copy of that email was in your packet, and that kind of prompted us to put this on the radar and maybe finally put these amendments to paper for once and for all, and accomplish something that will that will help our residents, especially as we're seeing neighborhoods turn over to new populations. So the proposed language, rather than stating that all residential fences have to be set back 1 foot, would state that fences have to be on the private property owner's property, behind the boundary. And also that boundary line fences would be possible with notarized signature of all adjoining property owners. That was something we found in a lot of examples we looked at. Rather than trying to ask residents, of course, to come up with the best way to do a notarized statement, our intent at the staff level would be to create a form that would go along with a fence permit application in that situation, that essentially would have the applicant saying, I have presented these plans and this is consistent with what I'm making a permit application for. And then the adjoining neighbors being able to say, I have reviewed these plans and consent to construction of the fence on a boundary line. So we'd be preparing a form for them to use. I am a notary here at City Hall. Of course, our local bank right in town, pretty much everybody who works there is also a notary. So obtaining a notarized signature shouldn't be too terribly much of a challenge, because I certainly am happy to make myself available for that at any time. It's interesting to note that business fences, businesses have been allowed to have boundary line fences for quite some time. Residential fences have been prohibited from that. So essentially, we're looking to correct that and standardize the language between both types of fences. We also wanted to be a little more current in recognizing swimming pool fences. The standard at last update, more than 20 years ago now, was to require exactly a 6-foot tall fence to surround a pool. The current standard is really a 4-foot fence minimum. So what the language that we have before you proposed would be to allow a fence that is at least 4 feet in height, equipped with safeguards to prevent small children, from accessing at their wish. But also stating that the maximum fence height consistent with all of our residential fencing would be 6 feet. So I do want to point out that Councilmember Qualley caught one reference here that was a cross-reference in our code earlier today on page 53 of your packet. Near the bottom, under subdivision C, number 4, there's a note here that fences on all corner lots erected within 30 feet of the intersecting property line shall be subject to section 19, subdivision 8. That should actually be subdivision 11. So we have corrected that in the copy for signature this evening. It was an excellent catch. We appreciate that.
Catch.
And in case the question is in the back of anyone's mind, we also did a little walk through zoning code, and we're able to recognize that things like side yard and front yard and lot line are actually defined in code. So if there's a question about whether definitions exist, they do in the definitions section. And with that, if anybody has any questions, the Planning Commission, voted unanimously to recommend adoption of this. We as a staff are very excited about it because it's going to simplify a lot of things for us and hopefully make some of our residents happy.
This eliminates that little where you can't connect the fences.
Exactly.
Okay. That was weird.
And it was weird. It was absolutely weird. We acknowledge that. It has been more and more of an ask, and the more we think about it, the more having a fence 1 foot in on each side, it's not clean. And people want to improve their properties and make it look nice, and if they want to work together to do that, this will enable that, so.
I just have one quick question, that's it, because I have it's staring at me. So fences in the required front yard should not exceed 3.5 feet?
Yes.
What do you mean by required front yard? When would it be required?
Fences in the,
I was just curious, there may be a logical explanation, but for some reason it's not jumping out.
So, number 5, fences in the required front yard.
I am gonna say, let's call that an amendment, because I think that should just simply say fences in the front yard shall not exceed. So let's strike required.
That's what I was.
You are absolutely correct.
But
So,
maybe look.
as you look at this code, you'll see the things that are struck are existing language that we're eliminating. The items that are underlined is the new language. And everything else is existing content. So this is an opportunity to clean up
So,
a word here and there in existing content. So we would strike required from number 5 on
okay,
page
so number 5
53.
required, and then number 4, getting it to
Exactly.
the right one.
To
Okay.
subdivision 11, that correction, with those 2 corrections, I think.
Yeah.
You know what that subdivision is? It's, relates to kind of sightlines for traffic, because it's on the corner.
What it was pointing to was a subdivision regarding drainage.
Okay.
So
I just
basically,
impressed you memorized the ordinance and knew.
I looked it up.
So, one thing that came up was the erosion control. You may not know this, there's a property near me. That would leave up erosion control for years.
Yes.
Is erosion control, like, what governs erosion control? Because it's kind of.
Or
there's-
defines.
Yeah, there's kind of two different things. There's the fence that a certain somebody left up for
Yes.
several years.
Yes.
And to this date, there's still, at the bottom of, and I wish they were still here, the Minnehaha Creek
Yes.
demanded pond, or what do you want to call it, on the Cook property. There's still I don't know what you call it, the material down there. It's not a permanent solution. Does it land under the fence stuff, or do we have a separate erosion control?
I would say it probably falls within a little bit of both. To some degree, there's some determined on the project. If there was a reason that the city engineer found that it needed to remain in place for some reason, then of course, we wouldn't be requesting it be removed immediately. However, if we have requested it be removed, we now have this really nice provision in this, in this proposed ordinance that would say, you have to take this out within 14 days of receiving written notice from the city.
Yeah. And considering it, there's a non-zero chance it was not installed correctly, and the city engineer probably wants it to stay there for a long time. Didn't know if that fits into this conversation or if that's a totally different thing, because in 50 years, there shouldn't be stakes with.
We may be
Erosion
seeing
controls there.
another permit application at some point for that area, and that might be a good time to be able
Okay.
to deal with some of that as well.
Okay.
So, Mike, down below, is that, like watershed kind of, is that,
So how that property was done, it had to collect all of the water, had to be accounted for. And then there's this basin, and I guess there's this drainage thing that goes underneath where our driveway is. And it goes out into something that's supposed to like disturb
Filter?
it and let it go down in some sort of not white rod flow, like kind of capture a little bit before it goes into the wetland. And that, the fence, the erosion control up by our driveway was taken out, but the one down lower hasn't. And nobody sees it other than the people, the 3 houses that live back there. Where maybe you see it. I don't know. Okay, make that 4. But I didn't know if there's like rules that govern that. So that whole project kind of feels like it's been neglected. And I don't know if it'll ever be completed. But if it's a fence thing and they're violating something, then that's the teeth that the city has then to go after it. But there may be legitimate erosion issues and concerns with how that was
and
implemented.
who do you ask that question of?
Jeanette. She has all the answers.
And Jeanette will ask the city engineer,
Because we'd rather.
specific to the circumstance,
Yeah,
of course.
you know, and of
Yes.
course we don't want to have erosion
Yeah.
happen there, but you also don't want to have this unsightly thing exist there forever.
Right.
And I'm guessing that 7 years might be beyond what the
So
expectation
maybe-
was.
so do you want-
Certainly beyond the 180 days we're discussing tonight, yes.
So you want this, to take out the temporary one, but maybe look at, is there something that should be more permanent?
Well, I think that the entirety of that particular thing, and again, I'm sorry that we're kind of going on
No, I know,
to the
because
fencing things, but it is fencing.
Minnehaha was here, and so
Minnehaha
is-
demanded that be made a certain way.
Okay.
Right? And that's what was claimed to have been done, but I think we had some issues with this developer before with like a discharge issue or something
Okay.
from that. There's a lot of issues that surround this.
Okay.
And I don't know, it feels like he's kind of not around anymore, so I don't know if this thing will get resolved until somebody purchases the property.
My guess would be an opportunity will be arising to deal with that and other issues at a later date, yes.
So is it down to just 3?
There's 2 lots left.
So they're still going after the 2 lots, 2 edge.
That's my understanding, is those lots are separated. They're very small to build on. Probably, if you look at it, a lot of people have asked me what's there, and they say, oh, there's 1 lot left. I'm like, no, there's 2. So it's very tight.
Because doesn't the one have a driveway easement?
Yeah, that's my driveway. The 1 lot on the very end has 3 houses using the driveway behind and 3 houses theoretically using the driveway in front. So it's a little hindered. But anyway, I saw the erosion controls and thought, hey, this might relate to that. I'm not sure.
Our chicken ordinance, the one that went up, didn't that have some fencing stuff in it too?
That's a good question.
It would be separate, yes.
Okay.
I don't recall all the provisions off the top of my head, but that would be specific to
Chickens.
chickens, yes.
Jeanette, with consistency, like number 4 there on page 53, that we're like striking out 30, the word 30, and just using the number 30. Like, why do we do that in some areas but not others? Like, if you look at 6, we struck out 10, but 5 is still down below, and
That was kind of grammar standard, that everything, generally in your basic language arts 101, it seems like a lot of times anything under 10 is spelled out, but any numbers 10 and over, in your sentence structure, have typically just, you're able to just simply use the number rather than spelling out 30. So that was just,
never knew that.
I didn't know. There's my thing I learned from you. Right. So 10 and under, you can just write the number. 10 and over, you have to.
10, under 10, you would spell it out. 8 would be EIGHT, right? But 18 is just 1 8.
The idea
Yes.
is that you're supposed to write your letters and memos so an 8th grader can read them. They can read 1 through 10. They know what those are. Maybe after 15, they don't know how to read that number, so.
Talking to city council people there. I don't know.
All right, okay, thank you.
So really, those 2 adjustments then, right?
Yes, correct.
4 and 5.
I can make a motion.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
And if it's easiest, you can simply say as amended. I can recognize the changes to numbers 4 and 5 on page 53 as striking required and changing subdivision 8 to subdivision 11.
Sounds good. I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2025-01, amending section 19 of the city's zoning ordinance to update requirements for residential, business, and swimming pool fences as amended with the following amendments to section C, number 4, fences, to replace section 19 subdivision 8 with section 19 subdivision 11, and in section C, number 5, striking required front yard, so the sentence reads, fences in the front yard shall not exceed 3.5 feet in height. And was there something else?
I think that's good.
All right, I'll second that. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great, thank you for that, Jeanette. Good to check that one off the list. All right, item 7C, adoption of code of conduct policy for city council and city advisory boards. Jeanette, this is you again.
Thank you, Mayor. I think rather than going through the policy again, I think maybe we'll just focus real quick. I know the council's reviewed this at a couple meetings now. After we reviewed a first draft, the council's direction was to amend the code of conduct policy to be more reflective of not just the city council, but to include boards and commissions as well, so the advisory boards. City Attorney Thames prepared those updates for us. That was reviewed at the May 6th meeting. And then there was some continued discussion relating to, in the event, of a formal complaint and the hearing process. And I know that our city attorney had some conversation with Councilmember Qualley to arrive at adding a little bit of additional language in this section. It's redlined here, adding the language that during the review, the council shall give due consideration to the individual member's constitutional and statutory rights. If after a hearing and review, the council violation or finds that a violation of law, etc. I know City Attorney Thames consulted with Councilmember Qualley on that, and we talked about it a little bit as well.
And one of the things he said is, the city does put itself at risk for liability if they were to be a little bit too heavy-handed with respect to removing or censoring somebody that was improperly censored for, maybe for political reasons.
Political reasons, sure.
So with that adjustment, the council or staff is simply looking for the council to weigh in there. If there's any additional feedback we need to incorporate, we'd be happy to take that back to our attorney. Otherwise, if the council's feeling like we've heard this a few times and you're ready, we'd be happy to welcome a motion to adopt the policy.
I can make a motion to
You're just on a roll. Yes.
adopt the code of conduct policy for the city council and city advisory boards as presented.
Second.
Jeanette's happy that.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great, that's third time's a charm, I think, on that one, and we have a really good code of conduct now for our council and boards and commissions to follow, so appreciate that.
No problem. From my perspective, it was important to be able to clear this hurdle as well, because the amendment that I'm preparing to city code for the council and administration chapter, I also wanted to reflect the title of this policy. So having this finally adopted means that I can reflect that in my draft, and now we can work at moving forward with that as well. So everything ties together. Thank you very much.
That's nice, thank you. Great to have that done. All right, so with that, move on to item 7D, isn't David, approve establishing the position of part-time firefighter. Scott.
Thanks, Mayor. So this item is essentially more of a bookkeeping item. As you know, the amendment that was signed with Orono allows or may allow Long Lake to hire part-timers, but has been identified that Orono staff supports the part-timers and Long Lake staff supports the paid-on-call firefighters. And so what this is doing is just allowing us, if we get to the point where we need additional part-timers because something didn't go as planned, this does not allow any risk, I guess you want to say, for any of Long Lake residents or any of our contract cities to, not have firefighters for fire service. So just with that being said, this is just a bookkeeping item to establish this position, because currently we do not have this position underneath our organization. So this develops the job description and allows staff to hire, or at least post to hire if we have to, and we would get obviously one more blessing from the council. But right now we're not looking to do that. We're focusing heavily on our paid-on-call and hoping the part-timers from Orono can continue to fill the duty crew shifts along with all of our paid-on-call volunteer shifts. So we're just kind of making sure we have our established position in our organization, even if we may need to use it moving forward, even in a positive manner, maybe helping out the GP development too. So with that, in your report does show a summary of the position, and actual full job description also is attached in your packet. I guess just with that, I will take any questions.
Great, thank you, Scott. And yeah, I kind of, asked staff to put this together. Well, they actually put it together back in January, but to bring it forward now, just, council only meets every 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, and this is a public safety matter, so in the event that we needed to launch a hiring process, I didn't want to have to wait another 2 weeks to get it going or anything, so this kind of at least gets that aspect of it ready to go. So appreciate your work on that. And one question I have is benefits, under position details, benefits. Do we need to put anything in there about this is a para-eligible position as far as the part-time police and para-police and fire, do you think? Or?
That one I think is automatically qualified. If you're a part-timer, you qualify for para. You're not getting vacation as much as you would as a full-time employee. So you're still going to earn your safe and sick, going through all the ones that are, state statutes. You're just not going to earn health insurance also as a benefit.
All right, so I want to make sure that.
And do we want to leave the dollar amount for compensation in there, or just going to leave that blank?
That one is currently what we're paying our paid-on-call duty crew shifts, so the part-timer would also be in line with that.
Okay. I just think for, if this is something that's going to sit.
Commensurate with experience or something?
No, I mean, if we're putting this policy in for future use, I mean, it may have changed, or maybe,
It's a good point to all of
If
our
I can
positions.
expand on that section just a little bit. It does say the city's 2025 salary pay plan is amended to include the part-time firefighter position. Part-time firefighters shall be compensated at a rate of $20 per hour. The hourly compensation rate may be adjusted from time to time by resolution of the council.
Oh, okay, all right.
So the idea behind that was that not only could you do that as a separate resolution, but at year end, when we're adopting the salary pay plan by resolution for the coming year, this will also continue to be included as a line item within that. That helps for clarification.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, any other questions for staff on this one? If not, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2025-15, establishing the position of part-time firefighter, and to authorize the fire chief and city administrator to hire for the position as needed to supplement fire department staffing levels.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great. Thank you, Scott. Okay, that brings us to turn the page. 7E, as in Edward, Fire Department news and updates. Mentioned the forum that was a couple weeks ago, so some good information there that we laid out sort of the course of the future, where the cities of Orono and Lund Lake are working on drafting a joint powers agreement, or JPA, to create a jointly operated fire department. We hope that there'll be other cities interested in that as well, specifically Medina and Minnetonka Beach in some shape or form. So that's moving along. We're getting a draft kind of going for that joint powers agreement. And our fire chief and his leadership team has been working very closely with the Orono Fire Department leadership, and our city administrators have been working together on sort of working out operational issues that need to kind of converge as the department's going to work more closely together, including equipment and personnel and that sort of thing. And that's going very well, as we got an update during the council or the work session. So that's a little update there. But besides that, any other updates, Scott, or others want to?
Naming process. Maybe
Naming. Okay, yeah. And we've asked. We've pulled together. The fire chiefs have pulled together a group of firefighters from both departments to form a committee to come up with some naming options for the fire department. Part of the first amendment to the contract, Exhibit D, laid out kind of the parameters of coming up with a new name for the jointly operated fire department that would reflect kind of the community as a whole and that sort of thing. So the fire, already a couple of ideas floating around, but nothing official yet, and just the firefighters are going to work mostly amongst themselves to come up with some naming options, and then once that occurs, both city councils will kind of look at some options there as far as getting input from the greater community to come up with hopefully a really good name for our fire department that will take effect on hopefully around January 1st, 2026 is the plan. Good point there as well. Anything else others want to mention? All right, good. So with that, we'll move on to item 8, other business. go around. Councilmember Newcomer.
No, I'm good, no. Beginning of summer, so.
Yeah, eventually, hopefully. It was pretty cold out there today. It didn't seem like summer. But, it's around the corner. Great.
Yeah, I guess I had a question for Scott. I was just looking around at, like, no parking signs. Do we have like, a stash of signs somewhere? Or
We,
how
we
hard
may
is
have
it?
some, but they're gonna be non-compliant. So all new ones have to be reflective and they have to follow new sizing requirements, all that stuff, so
How much about average cost?
$100,
What?
like $100.
Oh.
Like, so I mean, these are just not like just one-offs, these are like, you should put 30 grand into the budget next year and start doing signs. If that's,
What, can we just dig a trench too, or is that gonna be?
well, that road needs to be redone anyways,
I
but
know.
it's just, you could tell from the picture, it was gravel. It hasn't been upgraded since that. From that 1940s picture, it was gravel.
Gravel's not allowed as new.
Right, so that road is this thick. It's not a very solid road.
So it's just freezing
And that's why it still has ditch draining.
yeah. Well, yeah, I was just looking at Amazon here. They're like $20, but I don't know if they're compliant.
Well, and that's the
For,
next,
like, dorm rooms or something. I have no
or they're
idea.
really thin plastic, so you have to get the ones that are good metal. So, I mean, I know there's a handful of vendors that do it. We just have to get pricing.
Yeah, but you're figuring $100 a pop-ish.
Well, I don't think
it's
that
quite
those
that
won't
much.
be.
Nope, they won't be.
The
They're-
park ones we looked at might have been closer to that.
Those were more of a custom sign, but your standard, this is something you can get from Econo Signs and
Yeah,
have it be
those-
compliant. It's,
Okay.
And you can use
Bulk.
the same post?
Yeah, we will.
I would imagine, so yeah, just simply
Right.
Okay.
Rules.
So is that, yeah.
bolt the new one
Because
on.
everything is
How many
according
are
to a
there on that
spec.
street?
I'm not certain.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. Anyway.
We'll have to maybe ask
Curiosity.
Sean to take a little
Just kind
look
of do a
there.
little bit of grading,
That would be a question for Sean, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah, putting those culverts seem like it's a lot more labor.
Yeah, because
Doing the signs seems like that's summer high school kid. Go do that for the next 2 hours. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
you gotta
no
look
real
like you're
business
making
is-
progress.
Well, yeah, and they, I mean, the ones he showed were just all white, so
Yeah.
there is no sign.
What's the point, right? Okay.
And the road's what, 15 feet wide? So it's not a very big road.
Right. You know, a lot of cities will put up stickers in the back when the sign was put up, so then I mean, probably a good GIS thing down the road, but to, track the signs as far as when the age is, and that way you're not replacing every sign in the same year and stuff, kind of gradually doing it, that kind of thing, so.
I'm sure it's the quality too. If that is in the sun all the time, it's gonna fade, whereas some other ones will, yeah,
Right.
it seems like
Not
as
fade
needed,
the
you would
sun.
wanna, anyway, not real business, just curiosity.
Yeah, we can dig.
What's that?
We can dig. We probably have some
Yeah, thanks.
flowing around.
We got a few new ones. All right, nothing else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, I don't have anything else to bring up. Mention that during the mayor comments and things. Ed?
I just have one item. We did have a full commissioner meeting a couple weeks ago for the LMCC, and Jim Lundberg did tender his resignation or retirement effective December this year. The LMCC will go down to a one-person operation, and it'll be less expensive, so it'll kind of be a cost savings, and it'll be Tyler Rabe will be taking over Jim's position and also kind of doing what he can for production, so a one-man show.
Is there interest in that facility?
Yeah, somewhat. There has been some activity, but not quite at the price that,
Yeah.
and it really kind of hasn't, I don't think that's gonna materialize
Yeah.
at the present moment. So,
When you say one person, probably it's one full-time, but they have some part-time employees. and
oh, yes, the
employees.
contract producers like Mark, who's here tonight, and there were contract producers that,
The fire forum.
the fire forum, yep, so, and they have a lot of, I don't know the number of contract producers, but the contract producers go to all the cities, so he can rely on the contract producers to produce content,
Nice.
meetings.
Guess what I got in the mail yesterday? Did you get something in the mail yesterday from a company called Midco? It
No?
was, it was a kind of a were coming to your neighborhood mailer, and you could scan a QR code, and it would give you information about the map. It showed a map of when service can be available in Long Lake, so.
So you didn't get one? I don't think I got it. I think they gave it to the mayor.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Right, check your mailbox.
Hang on.
It's just coming to Apple
I
Glen.
almost thought it was junk mail, but it wasn't. So, yeah, kind of cool. It looked like it was actually like homes around the lake, the south side of the lake, would be getting service as early as July. It said installation in June, service in July. And that's
This year?
pretty around the corner, right?
Did you forward that
Right.
to me?
Sure.
I would
Sure.
very much like that.
So yeah, I was
Yeah,
surprised
it's moving
at the timeline.
fast. Because, yeah, it was, I forget when we approved that, but it was not that long
Like 3 or
ago.
4 weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
Midco
And-
did actually send us some information today, but it was a little bit too aggressively advertising in nature for us to be able to post that. Generally, as a
Yeah, it was
city,
more
you want to
it was more
maintain
salesy.
neutrality.
Yeah, it was salesy kind of thing, so.
But I do have, we have some resources there. I did suggest to them that if they want to scale back maybe some of the advertising content a bit, we'd be, happy to make some information available. But in the meantime, if any council members are looking for content, I'd be happy to share that with you.
Thank you. All right. Scott,
I don't have anything.
Jeanette.
I don't either, thank you.
Wow, okay. All right, so as we look at the schedule here, city office is closed, of course, on Memorial Day. And our next meeting would be Tuesday, June 3rd, potential work session, and council meeting at 6:30, June 3rd. All right, so last call. If not, I will, if no objection, adjourn the meeting by general consent. Hearing none, meeting is adjourned at 7:47 PM.
I should have said the end of December.